everyone. Thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grew Up. On today's episode, it is my pleasure to welcome my guest, Sara Bailey. Hey, Sara, how are you?
Hello, I am doing well.
It is so good to meet you. We have some mutual friends, one that's been on the podcast before, Miss Jamie Choi, and she is a, dental hygienist. Sorry, Jamie. I didn't forget. I just slipped my mind for a second. But you and Jamie grew up together, right?
We did. I have actually known Jamie since she was born.
Oh man, that's a whole lot of time to be together and to know each other. So both of you are from Augusta, and she kind of shared with me that Augusta is kind of a medical hub, I guess you could say.
Yes, it is definitely a medical hub. I think we have 9 working hospitals in our area.
Wow, that's crazy. So you guys, Sara is here to tell me a little bit more about what she does, and she is disclaimer. It's like, I don't know why it's so hard for me to say this word, but I'm going to try. Okay, physician assistant.
Perfect.
So for the rest of this podcast, I'll be just saying PA, and I'll leave the pronunciation up to Sara. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous just now, like sweating. But
That's so funny.
Yeah, so Sara, you are a PA, correct?
I am.
So what is a PA?
So, yes, a PA is pretty much a provider, is what they're called nowadays. And we work under doctors or physicians. And the thing is that the physician does not have to necessarily be there with us. We just have to send our clinical notes to them to sign as well. But we can pretty much do almost everything that a doctor can do as long as we have a doctor to work under.
Okay. So I had an MP on before.
Yeah.
Is it similar to that?
So it's similar, but we do have differences as well.
Okay. So what are some of the differences? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually just answered this question the other day.
Oh.
So I was already prepared. So pretty much what it starts with is schooling, which I can go into that later. But our schooling is very different. That's probably the biggest difference. And then as far as what we can do, it's kind of guided state by state, but NPs can actually in certain states hold their own practice without any sort of physician.
Oh, wow.
We cannot do that. We always have to have a physician who oversees us, not physically, but just always signs everything. And we also, PAs can work in any field of medicine. NPs are specifically trained to work in like family medicine, pediatrics, women's health. They're more confined to an area like physicians are.
Oh, I see. So, okay, for me, you were going down this list and I'm thinking, okay, what else is there? Like, is there more? Like, are you saying like in a hospital setting, a PA would be able to work there over an NP or?
Yes. So PAs can actually work in like surgery. They can do neurosurgery. They can do work in oncology. They really are like our scope of practice can go into anything.
I see. Okay.
But NPs cannot.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Oh, I didn't know about this. Like, yeah, they can go into surgery and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So, you were saying that a doctor has to oversee what it is that you do and sign off. And like, what does that mean to sign off? Like, what is it that they're signing off on?
Yeah, so every patient that we see, we have to have a clinical document, like stating what we did during the visit, the types of medications that we prescribed, what we diagnosed, why we diagnosed it, and so a physician just makes a chart and he signs it off and it's done. But we sign off on our chart and we send it to a physician who then signs off.
I see. Gotcha. Okay, so specifically, what what is it that you do, and like what do your days look like as a PA?
Yeah. So I am an urgent care PA. Um, and my days look like I work pretty much 14 days a month. That schedule varies every month. And on weekdays, it's 8 o'clock in the morning to 7 p.m. And
Okay.
then on the weekends, it's 9 o'clock in the morning till 3 p.m.
Okay, that's not bad.
No, I love my schedule. That's actually the best part of my job.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like doctors, nurses that I've heard the stories of, the kind of the grueling part of it is the scheduling. And
Hmm.
that seems like a good schedule for a person in the medical field.
Yes. Actually, that is one of the reasons I chose PA over
Oh,
physician. Yes.
interesting. Interesting. Okay. Um, so what do you do as an urgent care PA? I mean, I feel like it could be obvious, but
No, no, no. Actually, it's really not. And right now during the pandemic, especially, it is not clear.
right,
um,
yeah.
so we are a walk-in clinic. You do not make appointments. We just see whoever walks in. So one day I could see 10 patients, the next day I could see 50.
Oh, wow.
It just depends. And we actually are a place for things like flu, sinus infections. We do laceration, like sewing people up. We do x-rays for if someone breaks a bone. We're kind of a place where pretty much you come in and we fix it right there. We don't do chronic care, so we don't treat things like diabetes or high blood pressure because those are like chronic medications, chronic issues.
Mhm, mhm.
We try to do things where you come in, we see the problem and we fix it.
Okay.
The thing is that a lot of people don't understand that, and where I work actually is on a part of Augusta where there it's a lot of low income. So we have people coming in with, I mean, gunshot wounds. We have people coming in going like having active heart attacks, active strokes because they don't understand what we are. And at the same time, we're the first thing they see when they drive it like into the city. And,
I see. I see.
and so we are kind of also like a pit stop where people come to us and we redirect them to where they need to go.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
like just like the intense ones, like gunshot wounds, and because like what are
Yeah.
you supposed to do? Like you can't help them.
Yeah.
So do people get angry? I don't know. I just feel like in this
Yeah.
situation of desperation, I would get angry if you couldn't help me.
Yeah. So it that definitely happens. And, I try to like talk to them and say things like, it's just, I understand you came here. And what we do is we do obviously like let's say someone's bleeding out. I'm going to obviously do everything I can to stop the bleeding and then call 911 and get them transferred to the hospital
I
as soon as
see.
possible. So
Yes.
we do what we
Of
can.
course.
And I mean, I've had like my clinic alone, we've had a heart attack, like active heart attacks coming in like every like 6 months. And I mean, that alone is where time is ticking. And so we do all that we can there. We wait for the ambulance and send them on down.
That's crazy. Have you ever had a like I know you probably can't share a lot, but like excuse
That's
me. What- excuse me, gosh. Like
Yeah.
a scary moment.
Yes. So I actually one of the first months that I worked there was my scariest patient. He was young. He came in. He seemed normal, but then all of a sudden, when I was talking to him, he started repeating the same thing over and over and over again. And he literally started to just like collapse
Oh
and
my
he started
gosh.
seizing. And I had no idea what was going on. And it was my first month of working. I was freaking out. Fortunately, like the ambulance got there and they took him, and he pretty much actually what happened was his kidneys had gotten infected so poorly that it gotten into his blood
Oh
and
my
gotten into his brain.
oh my
But he
goodness.
survived. And I was very thankful, but while we were waiting on the ambulance, because it took like 45 minutes, I just was like trying to keep him talking because he kept trying to pass out. That was probably the scariest moment.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh. I mean, like, because like you said, your place is more like the flu and like broken bones
Mhm.
and things like that. So when it comes to like, I feel like internal bleeding and neurology, like I would freak out too.
Yes. I mean, 'cause I'm like, "What do I do?" Yeah, I pray. That's what I
Oh,
do. I pray.
yes, 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 absolutely. So, um, w- like, so your days are a little bit unpredictable when you go into the office because basically you're saying it's urgent care and people don't make appointments, they just kind of walk in. So are they like, were you working through COVID? Like, how was that situation for you?
So COVID, unfortunately, was a very, very hard time. I mean, it still is actually. It's finally kind of letting up, but we actually became one of the main clinics in our area who tested for COVID.
I see.
So we had a huge influx. We went from seeing like on average about 25 patients per provider who worked there to seeing about, I'd say, 50 to 60.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was very hard. And then, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people know this, like with all the shortages going on as well with the workers, it definitely was occurring in my clinic. And so we were short staffed. We had almost triple the amount of people come in. It was rough. It's getting better, and
Mm.
I'm hoping that it continues to get better. But we definitely became one of the like COVID hubs.
Wow, that is crazy. You must have been super busy. But I want to say thank you for just like,
Yeah.
being there for everybody. I think it's amazing. I can't imagine how difficult the last 2 years have been. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
No,
that.
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so like you never know what to expect, I guess.
Mhm.
Um, but I guess is it just so when you see a patient, is there more to that more than just seeing patients? Like is there a lot of paperwork to do for a PA or
So that actually just depends on where you work.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I actually do very little paperwork, if any at all.
Mm.
I am blessed in that situation, because I have a friend actually who works in, specifically breast cancer
Uh-huh.
in Texas, and actually her job is mostly paperwork.
I see. I see.
So it just depends on the field you go into.
Gotcha. Well, I'm curious to like learn more about your story, but before we do, oh, another question I had. So, at your urgent care, like, are there doctors as well, or is it, a lot of providers, or?
Yeah. So, in our area, I work for a main hospital,
Mhm.
and that hospital has about, I think it's like six prompt cares. And in all of the prompt cares, there are physicians, but actually, my clinic is that we never have a physician. It's very rare.
Oh.
So, normally it's myself and another PA or NP.
Wow, that's
Mhm.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's not
It is.
crazy that there's no, physician, sorry. But it's just crazy to, think that 2 people are responsible for that many people coming in to an urgent care. Because like, when I think of urgent care too, like, I think, like, it is, like, I need an immediate, like,
Mhm.
fix, and I'm usually, like, throwing up like crazy, and,
Yes.
like, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm like, "I need to go somewhere to help me," and, like, right now, and so, I just can't imagine, like, working at an urgent care when everyone is coming in needing a solution.
Yes. Yes. It it can be very overwhelming, but, you're so exactly right, though. Throwing up, that is something that I don't mind fixing. Um, that is actually one of the reasons I went into urgent care. I actually like different things.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, that was, a draw for me actually because I really enjoyed not knowing what would come in the door, and then it being, I mean, people come in with skin rashes, people come in throwing up, people come in with, heart attacks. I felt like it would help me ground my information that I learned in school a lot better.
Wow. You're interesting. No, I mean, like, in the best
Yeah.
way possible. Because 'cause I'm like I mean, I take that information and I'm like, "Girl, you're crazy." Like, that's a whole 'nother level of, like, intellect, I feel like, but anyways, before we get too much further into this kind of
Yeah.
what you do, I'd love to know how you got here.
Yeah.
If you could take me back to even just the beginning, maybe like even right after graduating high school, like did you always know you wanted to go into the medical field or is that something that happened later?
Yeah.
Please, I want to know everything.
Absolutely. So, I actually had never heard of a PA before at all. Graduating high school, I was a very type A, like I knew that I wanted to go into psychology because I love people. I love like studying like human behavior. That's something that I very much enjoy. And I love building relationships. So I was like, psychology, this is it. Because I actually was terrified of needles. Terrified. When I went to get my college immunizations, I actually passed out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because of the needles. So
Wow.
I know. So I was like, you know what? Like I love medicine. I love like the knowledge that comes with that. That was always something I was interested in, but I was like, well, I can't tolerate needles and I can't tolerate blood either. I'm not going to be able
Mm.
to do that. So I was like, psychology is the next best thing. And in my head, the only option was doctor. That's it. Because at the time I didn't really think about nursing at all either
Mhm, mhm.
because I couldn't stand blood or needles.
Mhm, mhm.
So I went to college. I graduated. I actually graduated early because I was like, you know what? I want to hurry up and get into grad school and I want to be a psychologist because I
Wow.
knew that that's what I would have to do. So I graduated early and I ended up moving back to Augusta because I was going to take 6 months to apply to grad school. And um, in that 6 months, I applied for a job as a nanny and I got the job. And by chance, the person that I nannied for, she was a PA. So that
Oh,
was my first
wow.
time ever hearing about it. I was 22 at the time. And literally, when she told me what she did, I was like, I'm sorry, what is that? Like, what do you do? Because in my head, I had a lot of friends who went into the medical field, oddly enough, Korean.
Of course.
Yeah, they a lot of the females were just like, you have to sacrifice family a lot of times if you go into
Mm.
medicine, especially depending on what field you go into. And to be honest, I really, really wanted a family at that time. Like I was in my head, I was like, my family is what I want to be first. And so I
Mm.
never want to have to give that up for my
Yeah.
job. And so I kind of even that like pushed me away even further from being a physician or a doctor. And so when I heard about this PA thing, I was like, tell me more. And so she is the one who kind of like introduced me to what they do, how like they're pretty much like a physician, but actually you don't have to be on call like a physician if you don't want to be. You can choose what field you want to go into. And so that therefore dictates your schedule. You can
Mm.
be part time. You can take PRN shifts, pretty much meaning, hey, if you only want to work 2 shifts a month, you take 2 shifts a month. There's just a lot more flexibility with a PA.
Mm.
And that right there was kind of like a first, like, huh, let me just tuck that into the back of my head.
Mm.
Well, I was applying to grad school and actually, my brother, who is 3.5 years younger than me, he was 19 at the time, he was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, and he's doing well now.
Oh, good.
But when that happened, obviously that was devastating for my family.
Mm,
And it was really hard because a lot of the doctors, don't get me wrong, they were very smart, very knowledgeable, and we could have not, he wouldn't have made it without them.
mhm.
But we also had a few doctors who they just didn't understand how to explain what was going on to me or my dad, and especially my full Korean mother, who
Mm,
is not from America. Like, she just sees that her baby is like, he looks like he's dying, right?
sure, yeah.
So it was really tough that first week because they didn't know what was wrong with him. They actually
Mhm.
told us that cancer would be a blessing. That's how bad he looked. And so we were really struggling. But right after they did some tests and they were like, okay, we've narrowed it down to these three things, two PAs came in and they literally, like, I still remember they sat on the bed and they sat there and they talked to us in
Mm,
a very basic way that we could understand what was going on and what
wow.
each of those three different diagnoses would mean. And we could ask them questions and they sat there and they talked to us about it. And like after that, I felt like a huge weight had come off my shoulders because I was like, they, you know, they helped our family out in like so many ways.
Mm,
Obviously, medicine, yes, my brother needed medicine, but at the same time, like we also all needed to have like a mental, like health check in the fact that if my
yes.
brother doesn't, we don't understand what's going on and we think he's just going to die. The brain also is very powerful. It does very important things. And so it meant so much to me. And that was what changed what I was going to do. In that moment, I was like, you know what? This is what I want to do. I want to be this person who talks to their patients, who helps them understand what's going on. I don't want families to feel the way that we felt for these past 2 weeks. And
That's
so,
crazy.
yeah, it was God. That's what it was. I
Yeah.
had this whole like future planned out that I was like running towards, and God was just like, no, that's not where you're supposed to be. And so
Mm.
the next thing was, getting over the blood and the needles.
Yeah,
Um,
how'd you do that?
that's another like God and His grace and mercy because I was shadowing because you have to shadow to be a PA. You have to shadow
Okay.
other PAs, and I I remember this one guy coming in, he's like gushing blood, and I almost like passed out. But I just kept going and going and going, and it eventually I was fine. And now actually one of my favorite things to do is to sew people up.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's
That's
crazy.
great though. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
Oh
and so
man.
after that, I gave up going to grad school for psychology, and I had to go. So this was the big thing, right? I was 23 now. I had just graduated from college and I wanted to go to PA school. Well, I needed more science classes.
Okay.
So then there was this whole thing of, well, great. Now I'm going to have to go back to undergrad to take more classes and then apply to PA school. So I was like, so that's just going to be more time. I'm going to be old. Like all these thoughts are going through my mind. I'm like, I'm supposed to have this plan. I'm supposed to be having this family by this time.
Right.
We all like, we think we know it all, right? When we're that
Mm.
young. And we know nothing.
What do you mean? I knew everything, Sarah. Like I knew it
You're
all. I knew exactly what was gonna happen to me.
maybe it was just me.
I'm kidding, you guys, if you didn't catch my tone. I had no clue. We had no clue. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so I took a chance, and one of my biggest fears is failure, and so that was a huge step for me to go back to school to then because so it's ironic too, when I would have come out of undergrad right after and applied to PA school,
Mhm.
nobody knew what a PA was. So PA school was in
Mm.
no way a challenge to get into. You just had to have the
Mm.
grades and you got in. By the time I finished all the new science classes, a PA was like the number one job.
So
So
around what year was that?
everyone, this was like 2015.
Okay, because I feel the same
Mhm.
way, like listening to your story, because I feel like, because we're kind of around we're the same
Yes.
age. And when I graduated is when I had friends in California telling me about a PA. And I was like, what is
Oh,
that? Like, what is that? And then it was around that same time when I feel like that career choice was a little more popular. So it's interesting, this timeline. Okay. So you
yes.
had to take the classes, and then it was more competitive, you're saying, to get into PA school?
It was super competitive.
Oh man.
Yeah, so each class size, our class at where I went, Augusta University, they accepted 42 each class,
Oh
42
wow,
people.
that's not a lot of people.
Yeah, and they had, I think they said my year they had over 800 applicants.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, it was crazy. I was just like, "Okay, I'm walking into this." So, I applied, and my first year I actually didn't get in.
Oh wow. How
And
did
so
you
that
feel?
I cried.
Yeah.
It was
Aw.
terrible because I honestly just felt like at the time, for me personally, I was just like, God, like what does this mean? Like
Mm.
what does this mean? And there were a lot of personal things going on at the time, but I prayed and I felt honestly that he was saying you have to try again because I believe he was teaching me a lesson in failure because
Mm.
I am someone who if I even think that I'm not going to make it, I won't do it.
Hey, me too. That's me. Like I don't even like play video games like and stuff because I'm too scared of not being good at it. So I'm like, it's fine. I'm good. I don't
Oh
even
my
want to
god.
try.
Yes, you are, like, speaking to my soul.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I totally get it. And so even when you
Yes,
told me you didn't make it the first year, I was like, crap, how did you feel? That's why I
I
asked you, because I would
yes,
have been devastated.
I was devastated.
Oh man.
It was rough, and honestly, I mean, if anything, it was a huge punch to my pride.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was just like, "Wow." So, I contemplated, I just got more shadowing hours in because, like I said, you have to shadow a PA, and then the second time so after, like, a lot of prayer and thought, I was like, "I do need to apply again." So
Mm,
I applied again, and I made it the second time.
amazing. Wait, can I
Um,
ask you one thing before you go on?
yeah.
Actually, two things. You said you had to take those more science classes as a prerequisite.
Oh, yes.
Like, so say someone decided right after high school that this is what they wanted to do, like like schools are set up to know what kind of classes they need to take.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Correct.
And like so you is there a lot?
So, no, the problem was that because I was like, "I'm gonna be a psychologist, I'm gonna be a psychologist."
Uh-huh.
I Psych degrees do not require, like, true sciences, like
Oh,
chemistry, organic
I
chemistry,
see, I see.
um, and so those were all the ones that I had not taken.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. And then, in your shadowing before you got into PA school, like were there like confirmations for you? Was it like, oh, this is definitely what I want to do? Or were there any times where like, is this what I want to do? Or
Yeah. During shadowing, I actually very much felt more and more confirmation like, this is something that I can do. I believe this is something that God is calling me to do. I definitely got more and more confirmation. I think it was just though, I'm such an overthinker that any sort of, like even not getting in that first time, I was like,
sure.
oh, well, maybe all those confirmations were not true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel what you're saying completely.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you get in. Yay.
Yeah, I know, yeah, it was so exciting. I got in and yeah, so the process to get in pretty much every PA school, you have to have shadowing hours. Each school, it differs how much shadowing you have to do.
Mhm.
To get into Augusta University, you also have to have volunteer hours. And then you have to take the GRE.
Okay.
and you have to have a science GPA and then your regular GPA.
Oh, yikes. Okay.
So, yeah, so that's like the trick, right? So you can take all these cushion classes to make your science your regular GPA go
GPA.
up, but if your science GPA sucks, you're not getting in.
Oh man. Okay. So
Yes.
even you said there's so many applicants, and then I mean, is there like an interview process and stuff
Yeah.
too?
So you send in your application and then they email you for an interview.
Okay.
And you spend from 8 to 5 doing interviews.
With like who?
So I know it's different at each school, but at our school, it's pretty much the professors and the directors of our program that you
I
have
see.
interviews with. Hmm.
So do you know how many, like, do they, I mean, I'm assuming they don't do just 42 interviews. Do you know how many interviews
Yeah.
they did that year?
So they start in, I think it is the beginning of September.
Uh-huh.
And normally they have the class by November.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like they don't tell you this necessarily, but it's really rolling
I
admissions.
see. I see.
So you turn in your application and then the sooner you'll get into interview because if they, let's say the first interview they like everyone, then that's already cutting the further
I
interviews.
see. Gotcha. Got yeah.
Mhm.
That kind of sucks.
It does.
Oh man. Okay, so once you got in, like, so how many years is the program?
So it is most general PA programs are 2 years and 3 months,
Okay.
but some specialty PA programs I think are 3 years.
Okay. Do you have a specialty?
So I do not.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, so you got into PA school, and so what is it that you guys do? Like, what are your classes like? Do you
Yeah.
guys have to do like some sort of residency program? Could you tell
Yeah.
me more about that?
So the first year and like 2 to 3 months is straight up classroom. You're
Okay.
just in the classroom and you're learning. So this is where the whole NPPA thing is different. We are taught on the physician module is what it's called. So pretty much we're taught what medical school is taught
Oh,
without like the first year, I would say everything, or sorry, the first like 3 to 6 months, everything else is combined into those 2 years and 3 months for us. So it's like medical knowledge on steroids. They always said it's pretty much like, what is it? What do they say? It's like water out of a fire hydrant. That's how much like information like is just being like shot
oh
into us.
gosh. Uh-huh.
And so we do things like anatomy and physiology. We got to do cadavers, like actual human bodies. Some schools don't get to do that. That was a huge thing for me as to why I wanted to go to Augusta University because I wanted to do cadavers.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Yeah, because it's just so much more accurate, and
Mm.
you get more of a feel of truly like what the human body is. I
Mm.
will say that that was an experience that I will always treasure. I loved that.
Oh my. What
That
did
was
you like about it when you were there? Like, because you imagine it in your head, but when you got to see a cadaver and stuff, like, what did
yeah.
you enjoy the most?
It was just yeah, yeah, it was completely different. I think it's just I am a very visual person,
Yes.
so I
Oh my, are we
felt
like the
yeah,
same person? What is this? Okay. I'm like having a moment right now,
yeah,
Sarah.
yes. It was like seeing things that I had read about, but seeing it instead of just like reading about it or picturing it or seeing it as like cartoon pictures in books,
Mm-hmm,
but to
hmm.
actually like see it for what it truly is because it looks nothing like what's pictured.
Sure. Yeah. I would imagine it
Yeah.
doesn't. Like,
I know. It was just like it was just mind-blowing, and I think it's too just the idea that, like, these people have, like, gifted their bodies to science to, like,
mm,
further medicine to help others. That was, like, a very, very, like, precious thing too as well.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So what I mean, I would imagine um, medical school on steroids is not the easiest thing in the world. Yeah, I mean, like, were there any moments of discouragement for you, or are you the type of person that's like, I'm here, just gonna grit my teeth and get through it?
Yeah, there were definitely some discouraging moments, where I definitely was like, "Man, I'm not smart. I'm not as smart as I thought I was," but
Mm,
it's all humbling.
yeah.
It was definitely a very what can I say? I mean, would I do it again? That's I don't know. I don't know if I'd do it again because it was
Mhm,
very hard. But it was more emotionally hard than anything because you have 3 exams a week, and they're not the same subject. They're different subjects. You're learning things from 8 to 5 every day. So PA school, you have to be in the classroom from 8 to 5 every day. Other schools like med school, like dental school, they don't have to do that every
okay.
day, but we
Why
do.
why is that? It's just because 'cause you're just taking in all this information?
Yeah. They're trying to literally just give us as much information as possible, to, like, help us out, and I get it. It definitely holds us accountable, but
Mm,
it gets very tiring, and the thing is that your personal life goes on hold. That's the problem.
mm,
There's just like, there were some people in my class, who like, they had families, and I really just didn't like, more power to them. They were some strong people because I don't know if I could have done that.
mm,
It was very difficult. Now it's possible, don't get me wrong, because one of our smartest and, like, top students was a mother, of
mm.
3,
What?
but yeah, I know. But you know what? Like, it's very, very emotionally draining,
Yeah,
and, like, I mean, I had a friend get married, and I had to say I couldn't go to her wedding, like, it's, like, stuff like that you can't go to. It's just because you have another exam to study for, and you're trying to see the bigger picture the
sure,
entire
yeah,
time,
yeah,
and that gets very hard. I'm
mm,
not a bigger picture kind of person, so I definitely would get caught up too much in, like, the finer details and get very discouraged. But that was where, honestly, my faith really grew while I was in
mm,
PA school because,
amazing.
I really wouldn't have been able to get through it without, like, my church family, without just, like, the faith that God had given me prior to.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, yeah, because I hear first of all, like, I mean, again, before talking to you, I think I was very naive and ignorant in knowing what a PA does and also what the education part of it looks like. But, you hear all these dreaded stories about medical school in general, right? Like
Yeah.
8 years of just like your life being sucked out of you. But, you know, but I
Yeah.
mean, and I've had friends in the past too that are doctors now, but
Mhm.
I almost didn't believe them. I'm like, "Really? You can't come out just for a second?"
Yeah.
But they're like, "Yeah, we can't I can't." Like, "I can't." And I'm like, I mean, what does that even mean?" But hearing you talk about it too, it's like, wow, that just really puts things into perspective. Because it's like, yeah, looking at the bigger picture, you know, what is the 2.5 years that I'm here
Mhm.
versus what I'm gonna be able to do when I get out of here,
Yeah.
and the impact that I'm gonna be able to make and truly carry out the vision that God has given me. Man,
Yeah.
sacrifice, Sarah. That's
I
amazing.
know. Yeah.
That's
It was rough.
amazing.
It was rough,
Yeah.
but it was worth it.
So do you guys do clinicals as well?
Yeah, so okay, so sorry, the first year and 3 months is purely, in, like, the classroom, and then the next year is purely clinical.
So like how does one I mean, I think I know the answer because I feel like it would be like you just practice it, but how does one retain all
Oh,
this information?
so this is the key. It really is you fake it till you make
Yeah.
it, because let me tell you, you will not be able to remember all of it. You just won't.
Right. Right.
So that brings me to why I chose urgent care, because I knew that I had just spent 2 years and 3 months of my life like shoving information down my throat
Mhm.
and into my head, and I wanted it to be solidified, and the only place that I felt like could do that would be practicing it in, like, person, and the place to do that is urgent care.
I see, I
Um,
see.
so and that's the only way, like, I mean, the only way you can learn that information truly is practicing it, and
Mm.
you don't get enough of that in the schooling. It's just, and they understand that. The professors know that. They tell us that all the time.
Mhm, mhm.
We just try to memorize all the main things that we can.
I
Once
see.
again, like bigger picture things.
Right, right. Okay.
Um, yeah.
Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh, no, 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 that was it.
Um, so your clinicals, what was that feeling for you? I'm curious. Because
Um,
aren't clinicals like when you start seeing patients for yourself?
well, we have to go in with someone.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, but it was definitely a breath of fresh air from being in the classroom for
Yes.
so long. I enjoyed clinicals a lot more. We had a lot more freedom. Our schedules were a lot more loose. I actually enjoyed seeing patients, seeing things rather than just learning them from the book.
Mm,
Um, yeah, clinicals just really, once again, like confirmed to me I can do this for the rest of my life.
wow.
I love medicine.
That's insane. That like
Yeah,
because I mean, it really is a gift, right? To be able to say that you really love what you do. And I think
yeah.
that's really awesome. Okay, so you graduate
Mhm.
and then you said you decided to go into urgent care, but like is there a job process for that? I'm just curious for or I mean, I would imagine are P's high in demand? I feel like they would be.
They're insanely high in demand.
Okay. Well then.
Yeah, they are. I know. This is why it's so competitive. It's crazy. Yeah, so multiple PAs can work under a physician.
Okay.
So what happens is a physician can have like 5 PAs, and
Mhm.
technically all the patients of the PAs is under that physician, so it counts under that one physician.
Okay.
So and we like increase patient load. So that's what they want. But when you first come out of school, nobody is expecting you to be able to just come out and see, 50 patients a day.
Okay.
They understand pretty much there's this thing that's known the first 2 years after you come straight out of school, you don't really increase production very much. You're mostly learning still,
Okay. Okay.
kind of honing in on your skills. And then after 2 years is when pretty much things start to get rolling. But so you have two options. You can go straight into a job out of school,
Mhm.
or nowadays there are PA residencies for
Oh.
specialties. Um, but that is, and those residencies range from like 6 months to 2 years. It just depends. But most people only do those if they really want to go into a specific specialty.
Okay. Um Sorry, this thought came to my head as you were explaining that. You mentioned before you saw kind of the benefits of a PA, especially when you excuse me, when your
Mhm.
brother was diagnosed with cancer and you saw the relationship that was being built with yourself and your family and other PAs. But um I guess okay, what I really want to bluntly and very forwardly
Yeah,
ask is like yeah, like why PA and not doctor? Like at the
yeah.
end of the day.
Um, so I'm gonna say these things and hopefully not offend anyone.
No one don't get offended.
Yeah, don't be offended. These are my personal thoughts.
Yes.
But so the main reasons that I chose to be a PA is because I feel like the PA profession is mostly focused on the relationship with the patient.
Okay.
So, physicians, we need them. Do not get me wrong. We need them. Please, please, we need physicians. They have way more knowledge. They learn way more things than we do. Um, and the thing is that I think that's why I love the idea of us working as a team,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I think that there has to be knowledge, but there also has to be compassion.
Yes.
And unfortunately, something that has been lost in translation with a lot of physicians is that compassion and understanding that you have knowledge, but the real key is being able to translate that knowledge into information that the patient can
I
understand.
love it. Makes
So,
sense.
yeah, that is something, and that's where I feel like I have been like given this opportunity to be able to do that.
Mm,
I can't tell you how many of my patients, and I just see them in urgent care, right? Like I could see them once and never see them again. They'll come and they'll just say, hey, like I've just been prescribed 10 medications. I have no idea why I've been prescribed these.
mm,
And, you know, there's a huge problem in healthcare right now, anyways. There's just a lot going on. And I'm not saying that it is one physician's fault because we all make mistakes. But I love being able to go through those things with them and explain to them why they're taking it. And I'm blessed to have that time to even be able to do that with them.
yeah, yeah.
So that's really why I chose to be a PA.
Wow.
Yeah, there are many other things like the schedule. The fact that I can go from being an urgent care PA to doing surgery to doing, whatever. But that is the main reason.
I mean, for me, that is, as somebody that is not in the medical field, and actually, my only interaction, I feel like, with doctors on a very like real level is when I had my kids, right?
Yes.
And I mean, I speak very highly of my OBs, but in the OB office that I go to, but because it's their bedside manner. Like
Mhm.
the doctors that are at this particular doctor's office, they have made notes about me, to build a
Yeah.
relationship with me. And I didn't realize how important it is for me to want to trust somebody to deliver my child. And
Oh,
so what you're saying right now just speaks volumes. Like you want to feel cared for. You want to and your life is so fragile as it is,
yes.
and for someone to kind of just talk to you like it's like going over your head is like crazy. And so, and especially when you mentioned your family and your brother, something like cancer is like I've just from my own experience as well.
Mhm.
I feel like yeah, a lot of doctors, please don't get offended, I love
Yeah,
doctors. But
I know.
there are doctors, right? It's like you're just another patient,
Yeah.
especially if like it's like a specialty, like for
Yeah.
example oncology, right? Like they see a lot of cancer patients,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so you're panicking
Mhm.
as a person experiencing this situation, but for them it's like, oh, this is my everyday.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so the fact that a PA or someone like that, another provider, whether it's a PA or NP, can come and take the time to articulate that in a way that you understand and you feel cared for, man, just again speaks volumes. So Sarah, like, you are so cool and so awesome. I'm like, can we be friends? Like,
I
can
know.
you
I would love that. I would love that.
Oh man, that is so great. Well, we're kind of coming up on our hour together,
Oh,
but I feel like we could probably talk more. But was there anything specifically that you felt like you wanted to be able to talk about today about a PA or anything at all that I missed?
honestly, I think you hit everything. I really the only thing I will say is that I tell everyone to become PAs. I think it's the best. I love my job. Um, and I think that, you know, it's something that everyone should consider if they think anything as far as medical field.
Yeah. Okay. I know you love your job, Sarah, but is there something you don't like about your job?
Oh, yes.
Okay, try
Um,
to name just one.
I know, right? You're right. I should say I love my profession.
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't like the politics that come with
Oh
working in
man.
hospitals.
You are
Yeah.
definitely not the first person to tell me that in the medical field. I think
Yep.
it's across the board. It's the politics that come along with it. What does that mean? Like just like red tape sometimes, or what does that mean for you?
Yeah, there are certain things that I would love to do for my patients. Like I said before, a lot of my patients are low income, they don't have money.
Mm,
And there are certain things that I would like to just be able to do, per se, to help them out,
mm,
but I'm not allowed to
I
because
see.
I would, you know,
Right.
get in
That's
trouble.
hard. That's hard.
So, yeah.
Mm. Do you have any advice for somebody that might be listening right now? That's like, yeah, this is something I feel like could work for me. Do you have any advice for them?
Oh, yes, I would say shadow.
Mm,
That I think will tell you whether or not this is what is for you.
awesome.
And I will also say, never think that the money is going to be enough of a reason because it's not. It's just not.
I'm nodding my head yes, and in a very big manner because again, uh you are not the first person in a field like that is well respected, right? Like medical field, like law. Like I've had all these careers on, and that advice has been given. I think in all of them. It's like if you're going to
Yeah,
do this for the money, don't. You know, like
yeah.
because it's not worth it.
Mm-mm.
It's what they say. Like,
It's not.
you really got to love it.
You
And
do.
man. So like yeah, I mean, I feel like it's really it has to be whatever it is that you believe, but like for us, I know that you and I can't separate our faith from who we are.
Yeah.
And it really does have to be a calling, I feel like, in order to care for people in the capacity that those in the medical field do, that show compassion. And so, Sarah, once again, you are just such an amazing person. I am so grateful for your story. So, thank you again.
Yes. No, thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. Sarah, if there are people that maybe have more questions about being a PA or are curious to learn more about kind of your story or PA school, would you be okay with me connecting you with them?
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, you guys, if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to reach out. Let me know. If you'd like to connect with Sarah, please feel free to email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com, or you can DM me on social media. Thanks again, Sarah. Until next time, guys.